The Cabin That No One Would Enter. The Unsolved Mystery of Colorado's Mountain Man Adaptation. Chapter 1. The Eerie Abandonment. Why Locals Feared. The Isolated Cabin. High in the shadow of Pikes Peak, Colorado, the air grows cold and thin as autumn presses into the land. In the foothills and deep woods, stories collect like fallen leaves. Stories of miners, trappers, mountain men, and lost wanderers who vanished and were never found. But among the old tales, none haunted the territory like the abandoned cabin of 1899. Isolated, untouched, and avoided, it was a puzzle passed from father to son, whispered by mothers to restless children, and marked on every hunter's map with a warning: "Don't go near Blackwood Cabin." The cabin, built with heavy mountain timber and an odd sloping roof, looked ordinary from a distance. Its placement, however, was strange. Not near any trail, not beside a stream, not in the shelter of the rocky bluffs. It stood exposed, stubborn against the wind, as if daring the elements to erase it. Most settlers had never seen it up close, only those who passed through while tracking elk or bear. The structure had a reputation for bad air, and few dared trespass for more than a glance. What made the site notorious was not the architecture, but the palpable avoidance. For years, locals claimed no one had set foot near the cabin, despite the scarcity of shelter in harsh weather. Hunters camped nearby but left at first light. Surveyors marked the area but never measured directly. Stories circulated about odd noises drifting down from the woods at dusk, whistling, scratching, sometimes laughter, but always cut short by the wind. In the autumn of 1899, the mystery grew deeper, when a Denver surveyor named Jacob Lorne decided to investigate after hearing rumors from El Paso County. Armed with maps, measuring tools, and a healthy dose of skepticism, he set out for a weekend expedition. He wrote in his journal, "Locals say the place is cursed, a cabin no one will enter. Silly talk, or maybe evidence of a historic dispute over property. But my curiosity is stronger than fear." Jacob spent 3 days approaching the cabin. From a mile out, he observed strange patterns in the trees, branches broken in symmetrical fashion, bleached animal bones forming spirals on the ground. The weather turned peculiar, too. One morning, frost coated only the north side of the clearing, despite similar exposure on all sides. Birds avoided the area, and the distant call of wolves echoed, but seemed muted the closer Jacob came. On the first night, Jacob camped within sight of the cabin, but woke to whispers outside his tent. He described a sensation as if something alive was watching, not directly, but from a memory held in the land itself. He found no tracks, yet felt the distinct and growing unease famously linked to the site. By the third day, Jacob forced himself forward. He reached the cabin just as the sun sank low and shadows stretched across the porch. He recorded his first impressions. The structure is intact, doors tightly shut, windows blocked from inside, no fireplace smoke in years, scent of old cedar and musk like an abandoned root cellar. The air here feels heavier. There's a silence, as if sound itself is caught in the cracks. Jacob circled the cabin. He found odd handprints pressed into the soft earth, too large for children, too twisted for any healthy adult. He took photographs, later lost to time, and attempted to pry open the front door, only to find it bound with thick rope and sealed from the inside. He left without entering, his curiosity replaced by dread. In his journal he wrote, "I cannot explain what kept me out. My own hands would not move. The woods were loud, but the cabin muted my will." I will return later, better prepared. Jacob returned to Denver and shared his findings. Locals scoffed, seasoned mountain men nodded grimly, apologizing for not warning him sooner. One elderly trapper explained, "That place is a wound. I know men who camped nearby and changed when they came back. What happens in those walls is sickness, not story." Meanwhile, the county records, the only official documentation, described the cabin as abandoned, owner unknown, with a note that property taxes were never collected. Yet the same records mentioned odd disappearances and a list of names dated over decades, all linked to encounters near the site. Some returned home mute, others feverish, and a few were never found at all. In the nearby town, Blackwood Cabin became a symbol of both warning and curiosity. Teenagers dared each other to approach in daylight. Older men drank whiskey around the fire, swearing they'd heard tapping from within when the moon was full. Mothers used it as a cautionary tale. "Stay to the river, child. Don't go near the cabin in the woods. That's where the mountain keeps its secrets." Unbeknownst to locals, the abandoned site held more than superstition. Hidden within its walls were journals, unusual specimens, and a secret room that would not be found until years later. But in 1899, Blackwood Cabin existed as a chilling presence, real, tangible, yet forever unexplained. As winter closed in, hunters passing through noticed animal tracks halting at the cabin's edge, never crossing the threshold. Even dogs, loyal but superstitious, refused to near it. The woods seemed to breathe around it, waiting. It was in this eerie atmospheric tension, between land and legend, between fear and curiosity, that the next chapter began. The arrival of Dr. Blackwood, the experiments he conducted, and the trail of madness that followed. As winter descended more fiercely, the legend of Blackwood Cabin solidified. The daily rhythms of mountain life grew quieter. Families huddled close to stoves, sharing news and stories. The cabin itself seemed to shudder beneath snowstorms, its very presence daring the wind and cold to erase it, but refusing to yield. In town, word spread that Jacob Lorne's expedition had left him changed. He no longer spoke of future plans or mapped new routes into the mountains. Instead, he was seen, late at night, wandering the edge of civilization, eyes haunted, fingers trembling. Locals claimed he muttered about the silence that pressed in and shadows with names. Children whispered that he'd lost his voice to the cabin, a sacrifice for trespassing boundaries untouched by man. During the holiday season, fresh rumors spiked the town's anxiety. One trapper, Charles Red Murdoch, recounted a hunting trip with his dog. He reported stumbling on the cabin and hearing drumming from inside, low, steady, like a heartbeat. His dog cowered and refused to approach. Red left an offering of tobacco on the porch, hoping to appease whatever dwelled within. More reports came, this time from surveyors mapping a new trail for the railway companies. Their equipment malfunctioned near the cabin, compasses spinning, watches losing time. One crewman, desperate for shelter, tried to break the door, but was repelled as if by invisible force. He returned with frostbite and a stare as cold as alpine ice. Still, some doubted. The most skeptical were the prospectors, hungry for gold and undeterred by rumors. But each time someone talked of camping at the cabin, hands in town tightened on glasses, faces clouded. Leave the dead their rest. The cabin's taken enough already. County records added more intrigue. Detailed notes were kept by a clerk named Margaret Hanley, who tracked each disappearance with precision. She noticed that every winter there were more missing men near the cabin than anywhere else in Colorado's vast wilderness. Her files included letters from grieving families, sketches of the last known tracks, and a map with Blackwood Cabin circled in angry red. Some attempts to solve the puzzle were made by clergymen and healers. Preacher Amos Black rode out from the foothills, armed with oil and prayer, determined to drive out the mountain evil. He found the cabin locked tight. Inside, his voice echoed without reply. Amos claimed he felt a desperate sorrow, like a song sung backwards. He marked the cabin with a symbol and departed, leaving behind his own fears to infect future visitors. One spring, after the deepest snow had thawed, a young woodsman named Elijah Pike dared to investigate further. Elijah was curious, brave, and eager to make his name. The townsfolk watched him prepare, a rifle slung over his shoulder, a pack filled with provisions, journal in hand, ready to chart whatever truth lay inside. Before he reached the clearing, he noticed the forest growing unnaturally quiet. Squirrels vanished, birds avoided the trail. His own footfalls seemed muffled. Elijah made it as far as the porch, where he found a strange artifact, a stone lantern, carved with runes he didn't recognize. He described a sudden feeling of being watched by more than eyes, maybe by memory itself. When he touched the door, it opened half an inch, then slammed so hard his hand bled. He retreated hastily, but left behind his observations for town historians. Elijah's notes became legendary. Whatever is in there, it's alive in ways we aren't ready for. I heard a woman's voice, but not from inside, from the ground below. These first-hand encounters were paired with inherited legends. Each family had its own cabin tale, sometimes about lost hunters, sometimes about trappers gone mad, sometimes about faces seen in frosted windows. These stories became the lifeblood of caution in every home. As the millennium turned, Blackwood Cabin remained mystery, unbroken. The town grew, roads encroached upon nearby hills, but no one built a path to the cabin. Its location was omitted from maps, ignored by developers, and endured only as a specter in local consciousness. It wasn't until the arrival of Dr. Blackwood and his clandestine experiments that the true darkness of the cabin would begin to surface, pushing the community's fear to its limits and casting a permanent shadow across the history of the Colorado Rockies. As the new century approached, a subtle shift occurred. Scientific and governmental interest began to intermingle with legend. State authorities, following up on anomalies in railway survey records and missing person files, sent agents to perform environmental evaluations. These agents went equipped with the latest instruments, air sampling devices, electromagnetic sensors, even primitive photographic plates for night exposure. Initial reports were inconclusive, but filled with odd detail. One team described their compass needles spinning uncontrollably for hours at the cabin's periphery. Their lanterns dimmed inexplicably, as if the darkness itself carried mass. The logs on the cabin were warm to the touch in bitter cold, and several observers reported periodic vibrations in the air, like a distant drum nobody else could hear. In Denver, nervous officials debated whether they should demolish the cabin for public safety or keep it as an observational outpost. A division grew between those who saw only danger and those who viewed the site as a portal to discovery. For local Coloradans, these questions missed the point. For them, Blackwood Cabin felt eternal, both wound and secret, impossible to send away. Meanwhile, the tales multiplied. One spring, a group of teenagers resolved to spend the night on the porch as a test of courage. Only two made it past midnight, after hearing what they swore was someone reciting numbers over and over from inside. In the morning, their faces were pale as ash and their notebooks filled with strings of random symbols, written as if in trance. The children's parents forbade future visits, and a local pastor gave sermons about respecting the boundaries of the living and the dead. Even skeptics grew cautious. They too felt the change in the air and the reluctance in their bones. One compelling thread in the cabin's legend was its resistance to time. Photographers attempted to document seasonal changes but found exposed plates blurred, images warped beyond recognition whenever the cabin was centered. More than one artist gave up painting, convinced that every brushstroke ended in accident or sorrow. From 1900 onward, local historians began cataloging every known encounter. Their records included descriptions of physical symptoms, chills, fever, confusion, loss of speech. Reports of phantom lights seen through the cabin's windows, even after the fireplace should have been long cold. Journals from woodsmen describing rhythmic tapping at midnight and the appearance of strange, spiral markings carved into trees. The spiral motif, first noticed by Elijah Pike, became emblematic of the cabin itself. Those who dared draw near often returned with these patterns sketched on their clothing, scratched into their gear, or marked into their dreams. By now, county authorities actively discouraged all commerce or passage near Blackwood Cabin. Yet, as the territory modernized, mystery endured. Speculation flourished. Was the cabin the remnant of an early mining family whose secrets destroyed them? Was it the site of an ancient ceremony now lost to memory? Or was the land itself simply refusing to forget? Such was the eerie, powerful hold the abandoned cabin kept over its world, an open wound where the border between history and superstition thinned to a whisper in the wind. The town's relationship with the cabin grew more fraught as the years passed. Blackwood Cabin was no longer just a story or a superstition. It became a symbol of all things unspoken, a silent challenge to explorers and mystics alike. By 1901, local anxiety reached a fever pitch. Reports of livestock disappearing, crops failing near the clearing, and new spiral engravings appearing regularly on trees and rocks filled town meetings. A growing contingent of cabin watchers, comprised of trackers, healers, and skeptics, formed to patrol its boundary, hoping to keep curious wanderers safe, but also to witness anything new. Late-night gatherings took place at the nearest general store, where survivors swapped tales. Some swore they'd seen figures in the cabin's window. Others claimed to hear music, and a few brought fragments of odd stone, marked with mysterious black flecks. These pieces always elicited arguments. Were they relics, warnings, or just tricks of the wind? The pressure around the cabin intensified with the arrival of traveling preachers and self-proclaimed spiritualists, eager to confront what they called the center of mountain affliction. Public debates grew heated. Some campaigned for burning the cabin to the ground. Others insisted it must be protected as a vital knot in the region's history. This mounting tension set the stage for what would become the town's most infamous chapter. In the early spring, a stranger appeared, Dr. Magnus Blackwood. He came on foot, tall and gaunt, carrying scientific instruments, but speaking in riddles. Hired discreetly by a group of Denver academics, Dr. Blackwood presented himself as a man of reason, but rumors quickly gathered that he kept odd hours, wrote equations on stones, and had met with certain mountain hermits before ever stepping inside. Blackwood's first act was simple. He walked straight to the cabin's porch and placed a spiral of river stones at its threshold. He did not speak to the crowd that followed, but nodded at Margaret Hanley, thanking her for her meticulous records. Blackwood's presence brought new gravity, a feeling that knowledge alone would not penetrate the cabin's veil, and that its history was ripe for transformation. Within days of Blackwood's investigation, local weather changed abruptly. Sleet lashed the woods, animals fled, and the sky itself seemed dimmer. The town held its breath as Blackwood disappeared inside the cabin, promising to return with truth. Chapter 1 closes as the final community members recount the moment, the porch creaking under Blackwood's step, the silence so thick it muffled prayers, and his shadow mingling with the spirals that had marked all who came before. What happened next inside the cabin, and what Blackwood discovered, would forever alter every map, myth, and memory of Colorado's chilling frontier. Chapter 2 Blackwood's Secret Experiments, Found Journals, and Strange Specimens. In the spring of 1901, the legend of Blackwood Cabin shifted from a tale of eerie avoidance to a battleground for science, secrecy, and the darker reaches of human curiosity. The arrival of Dr. Magnus Blackwood brought not only new hope for answers, but also a cascade of events that would forever blur the boundaries between the known and the forbidden. Dr. Blackwood was an anomaly, even in a region used to eccentrics. Tall and spare, he seemed built for life among the pines. His eyes, hard as agate, betrayed both relentless logic and a nervousness well hidden beneath formal charm. He arrived with a promise to bring reason to what fear could not explain. His bags, filled with notebooks, sealed samples, and strange devices, suggested he had prepared for more than mere superstition. Some said he bought water at the general store but never drank. Others whispered they saw him talking to himself beneath starlight in a language no one recognized. The townspeople watched Blackwood with equal parts relief and anxiety. If he failed, it might vindicate their fears. If he succeeded, it could mean the end of their oldest protections against the unseen. Blackwood's first actions were methodical. Each morning he observed the clearing for hours, mapping sun and shade, recording animal tracks, measuring humidity, and sketching the strange, repeating spiral patterns found everywhere, on trees, stones, even burned faintly into earth itself. He documented bird flight patterns, always swooping in a wide arc around the cabin, and noted that field mice would approach but never cross the porch's shadow. His journals, which escaped destruction decades later, became the Rosetta Stone for future study. In terse, elegant script, he wrote, March 10th, tested threshold. Wind is cold but still, unnaturally still. Compasses spin counterclockwise. Magnetic flux abnormal. No resonance with steel probe. Smoke rises in a perfect spiral when incense is burned at porch step. Blackwood's first entry into the cabin was recorded by Margaret Hanley, who watched through field glasses from the ridge. The moment the door was forced open, wind whipped into the trees with a sound like distant chanting. Blackwood walked in, lighting a lantern, and disappeared for almost 3 hours. When he emerged, his clothes smelled of cedar and burnt iron. In his arms was a stack of objects, glass vials, a battered leather notebook, and several stone specimens flecked with metallic ore. Blackwood walked straight to the boarding house and secured his samples in a footlocker. Hanley, nervous but determined, intercepted him for an interview. "What did you find?" "Evidence of immense pressure, both environmental and psychological. Signs of habitation, but no personal effects. Journals, yes, but entries stop mid-sentence." "Is it safe?" Blackwood's mouth twisted. "That word has no meaning here." Inside the cabin, Blackwood found more than dust. His initial survey revealed 1. A heavy table, split in two as if from an inside force. 2. Walls scrawled with tally marks, numbers spiraling outwards, sometimes morphing into primitive glyphs. 3. Burnt candles arranged in a pattern like the sun's rays, each wick burned down to identical height, each candle wholly untouched by dust. 4. A child's shoe, placed precisely in the center of the kitchen, sole up. 5. Dozens of glass jars containing bone fragments, dried plant roots, and, in 2 cases, what looked like human teeth. In his notebook, Blackwood sketched everything. Beside each drawing, he noted temperature, humidity, and a column for unnatural sensation. This last column he filled with single words: weight, echo, vertigo, hunger, resignation. Days passed, and Blackwood settled into a strange routine. Scouting by day, locking himself in the cabin by night, emerging only at dawn to deliver samples for later analysis. He corresponded daily with professors in Denver and Chicago, sending coded messages via telegram. Some messages never arrived. Locals spoke of uncanny events during Blackwood's occupancy. Dogs barked through the night, teeth bared toward the mountain. Lamps at the boarding house dimmed at odd intervals, glass sweating with condensation. Food left on the boarding house porch vanished, even as snow revealed no footprints. One day, Blackwood was seen at the riverbank, trying to dissolve a stone sample in lye. The river's water frothed violently, and the fish floated belly up for a mile downstream. He quietly paid the fisheries for damages and wrote a note to the town's doctor warning, "Do not eat anything from the north bank for a fortnight." His only company was a battered phonograph and old cylinders of classical music. Some reported that he played Chopin's nocturnes too loudly, hoping, perhaps, to drown out sounds from the woods or those cycling through his own memory. Blackwood's journals reveal growing tension. March 29th. Dreams vivid, hear counting in my sleep. Saw a shape in the window, tall, indistinct. Awake, I find a spiral drawn in soot on the glass. Journal entries left by previous inhabitants cease suddenly. He waits for the equation, but he will not solve it. His study of the cabin's foundation uncovered a crawl space filled with old, petrified bones, some animal and some disquietingly human. Blackwood broke protocol and reported this discovery only to Margaret Hanley. Over whiskey, he confessed, "They were not buried properly. Whoever lived here knew they'd never rest. Bones face inwards, as if to mark a boundary, not a grave." Rumors swelled. The spiritualists prophesied that something had been bound beneath the cabin by rituals gone wrong. The skeptics insisted it was all the result of isolation-induced madness. The specimen jars grew in number. Blackwood catalogued spores, strange mosses, and, most disturbingly, a tiny sealed vial containing an oily black liquid, marked only with a spiral and a single word in Latin, mutatio. Blackwood began suffering migraines and bleeding from the nose. He wrote of a persistent ringing, smells of ozone and scorched feathers, waking to find mysterious script on his arms that soon faded. But he refused to stop. His entries grew erratic. April 6th. I am watched, not by eyes but by intent. Spiral in my dreams again, always growing. Time skips. Yesterday I sealed the jar, today it is gone. The phonograph reversed itself at midnight. Notes tumbling backwards. The air is alive. Blackwood's growing obsession, his increasingly unstable mind, and his remote correspondence set the stage for the darkest discoveries to come. Even as he isolated key phenomena, magnetic shifts, psychological breakdown, a possibly mutagenic agent, an unexpected force stalked Blackwood's periphery. The return of someone with a claim to the cabin, and the truth of what the spiral really meant. As the thaw of late spring loosened the land, the tension around Blackwood's presence escalated. Town life grew restless. More families left offerings at the cabin's edge. More sleepless nights passed as dogs howled and glass rattled. Some whispered that the spiral marked not only a physical boundary, but a psychic scar, a fracture in what the mountain called home. Blackwood, driven by both method and mania, began pressing deeper. He attempted to recreate environmental conditions using open flame, acid, and rare minerals extracted from mountain veins. His efforts yielded odd results: petri dishes sprouting fungal blooms in spiral shapes overnight, steel shavings twisting toward each other as if magnetized. Each new anomaly he catalogued with grim precision. April 19th. Burned root sample. Husk curled, split, and rejoined. Observed a second spiral etched in ash. Mercury spilled. It separated, then reformed. Not normal. Organic change is slow, but this is reaction by design. Increasingly, Blackwood suffered from insomnia. Neighbors reported seeing him prowling the perimeter well past midnight, muttering calculations, pacing between trees marked with chalk equations. Margaret Hanley kept her own log of his activity and began to worry for his health. She found Blackwood one dawn, slumped over the creek, face drawn and eyes unfocused. "Do you remember what you're searching for?" He answered, "Every question spirals back on itself. Whatever lived here may still be searching too." One evening, Blackwood invited Hanley into the cabin to witness something he could not explain alone. She entered, crossing the porch, bracing for a rush of cold, but instead feeling a deep compression, as if the air thickened. Inside, the cabin's dimness held swirling dust, the tally marks seeming to glow faintly. Blackwood pointed to the wall, where beneath layers of scratched numbers, a new set of symbols had appeared, seemingly overnight. "These weren't here when I left yesterday," Blackwood whispered. Hanley traced the symbols, realizing they matched her own childhood dreams. When she doubled back to ask Blackwood how he knew, he shrugged. "I didn't. Maybe the cabin chooses its message." Hanley urged Blackwood to document everything, but also to protect himself. She noticed bloodstains on his cuff, new chemical burns on his hands, and a trembling in his voice whenever he spoke of the boundary. A week later, an experiment revealed what may have been the cabin's most unnerving property. Blackwood placed a sealed vial of mutatio in the hearth and set a regular fire. Within hours, the glass melted without increasing temperature, and the black substance snaked along the stone, creating an unbroken spiral wick. The fire flickered green and blue, casting shadows that danced like silhouettes. Blackwood's notes. April 27th. If transformed by proximity, matter ceases to obey standard rules. Spiral is code. Code is boundary. Boundary is hiding something alive. Communication possible? Attempted Morse, echoed back in reversed sequence. Specimens multiplied. Blackwood filled 10 more jars with odd grubs, mutated pine needles, and flecks of metal not catalogued in local geology. Any attempt to remove samples from the mountain led to rapid decay. Vials broken, specimens liquefied, even Hanley's journal inexplicably erased after she left the region for a week. Rumors of Blackwood's state now reached neighboring counties. Some said he'd aged 10 years in a season. Others believed he was communing with forces beyond human bearing. Spiritualists held vigils outside the clearing, chanting for the spiral to release its keeper. Blackwood's catalog grew even stranger. He started hearing music at dusk, not from his phonograph, but from the air itself. Hanley and others confirmed it, high, wavering, sometimes resembling lost lullabies or reversed hymns. One of Blackwood's final entries before the crisis. May 4. Have begun conversing through symbol. Spiral grew overnight. Attempted translation via Fibonacci and prime. Sequence resists solution, adapts. Lost 6 hours. Woke outside covered in soil. Filled last jar. If message is for me, am I messenger or boundary? Margaret knows something I do not. Must find connection. By this time, the community's anxiety surrounding Blackwood transformed to outright dread. Reports circulated that 2 wanderers had entered the clearing and were never found. Children drew spirals on their schoolhouse desks. Teachers begged them to stop. Livestock refused to graze the fields near the cabin. The railroad stopped expansion near the valley. Blackwood himself became part of the legend. Watched, discussed, feared. Some pressed for his removal. Others, scientists and seekers, argued he must stay until the spiral's purpose was revealed. Whatever the truth, it was clear that Blackwood had touched something in the cabin that changed him, and by extension the town, forever. The stage was set for the next revelation, the hidden room, the impossible lamp, and the secrets Blackwood would uncover at tremendous personal cost. By early summer, Blackwood stood at the edge of comprehension and collapse. His body was worn and his mind saturated, but revelation was near. It started with an accident. While inspecting the hearth, Blackwood felt the floor shift, and a low, hollow sound echoed beneath his feet. He followed the spiral carvings in the wood until discovering, at the base of the largest one, a subtle seam. The boards parted, exposing a trapdoor almost invisible beneath decades of soot and debris. Calling for Margaret Hanley, he lifted the door together, risking more than dust. What they saw beneath was not a root cellar, but a round stone chamber. Walls painted with hundreds of spirals, some glowing faintly under lantern light. In the center, on a crude pedestal, sat an impossible lamp, an iron base and a glass dome swirling with thick, oily shadow, emitting a pale blue flame that twisted counter to natural wind. The lamp defied all previous science. Blackwood attempted to measure its thermal output, electromagnetic field, and chemical origin. But the readings shifted wildly. The flame changed color with spoken words, sometimes reacting to rhythm, sometimes to silence. Hanley, terrified yet entranced, whispered an old legend from her childhood. The lamp keeps the mountain's heart. If it goes out, something wakes. Blackwood removed journals from a niche in the chamber, written in 2 hands, one scholarly, one frantic. The entries detailed experiments in adaptation. The previous inhabitant, driven by desperation, had sought to alter his own mind and senses to survive isolation, using minerals, local fungi, and the lamp's unwitting powers. The results: anguish, brilliance, terror, and descent into madness. June 3rd. Found the room. The lamp adapts its light to thought. Spirals everywhere. Journals describe transformation, sacrifice, warnings in the boundary. The mountain wants its memory back. If I fail, seal the door. Days passed in fevered study. Each night Blackwood grew weaker, sometimes found shivering and weeping by the creek, clutching spiral-marked stones for comfort. Hanley tried to persuade him to rest, but he refused. If I abandon this, the mountain will never forgive me. The lamp's power was contagious. Margaret dreamt of spirals by day, saw codes in storm clouds, heard music in thunder. Townsfolk began visiting the clearing at dawn, hoping the light would cure affliction or reveal lost answers. Animals returned, but only to circle the lamp, tails low and eyes glazed. Blackwood's final notes were lost to time, but Hanley remembered his last words before vanishing. Remember, adaptation is not escape. Some boundaries must remain unbroken. If the lamp dims, stay away. After Blackwood's disappearance, his fate debated and mourned in equal measure, the cabin's door sealed itself once more. Some say the lamp was taken by government men. Others believe Margaret buried it in a forgotten mountain cave. The spirals faded from trees, but burned forever in the memories of all who witnessed the mountain's evolution. Locals looked to the cabin with new eyes, understanding that its legend was not just fear, but warning, a tale of human brilliance, obsession, and the cost of crossing too deeply into nature's secrets. The cabin remained unchanged and eternal. Blackwood's specimens decayed or vanished. His journals became scattered between archives and private collections, sometimes appearing in cryptic letters to faraway scientists, or tucked inside anonymous museum packages marked only with spirals. But what Blackwood proved, by science or sacrifice, was this: the heart of the mountain is memory, and the cost of adaptation is never paid alone. Chapter 3. The Hidden Room and the Impossible Lamp. Investigators' shocking discovery. After Blackwood's disappearance, a vacuum formed around the cabin, not only of physical absence but of silence itself. The local authorities, pressed by both scientific curiosity and public fear, debated how to proceed. Should the cabin be exorcised, torn down, or left to history? Margaret Hanley, haunted by Blackwood's final warnings and driven by unresolved mystery, assembled a team: an assistant from a Denver university, 2 former railroad surveyors, and the town physician. Their stated goal: to find out what happened to Blackwood and to secure the site before the mountain, or something within it, decided for them. The Hanley expedition began in late summer, after weeks of preparation. The group was determined never to spend a night inside, always retreating before dusk. Hanley copied every page of Blackwood's surviving journals, logging the symptoms, chemical reactions, and coded observations. They brought rope, medical kits, lanterns, and the latest in surveying gear. This time, they would look for more than just spirals. They would investigate the foundation, the walls, and every inch of the basement for signs of deeper secrets. On the second day, Hanley's assistant, Stephen Broyles, unearthed the trapdoor Blackwood had described. With trembling hands, they pried it open, fighting decades of dust and a dense, bitter smell that stung eyes and throat. Inside, the hidden room greeted them. A stone chamber, only 10 feet wide, painted with hundreds of luminous spirals, some flickering faint blue in the lantern light. The centerpiece was unmistakable, the impossible lamp. It pulsed with shifting flame, unnatural colors rippling in the glass. Scientists debated whether it was radioactive, chemical, or something else. Its heat did not match its appearance. As Hanley reached out, her breath grew short, pulse racing. The lamp's blue flame responded to movement, becoming violet as she spoke Blackwood's name. They cataloged everything: stones carved with unknown glyphs and equations, shelves lined with vials of dark liquid, and spores sealed with wax. Dried animal bones, including one striking spiral-shaped vertebra. A ledger written in cipher, pages full of equations and observations. Blackwood's last journal. If you find this, the boundary has thinned. The lamp cannot leave, lest memory devour the living. Every object was photographed, tagged, and analyzed with cautious awe. Broyles measured radioactivity. The lamp showed none, yet small compasses on its ledge spun madly. The blue flame responded to voices, dimming when Hanley whispered family legends, flaring when the doctor recited the names of those lost near the cabin. Surveyors noticed time distortion. Watches ran slower. Shadows bent at odd angles. The lamp's glass exuded a fine dust even when untouched. Sleep evaded the team. Each night, they dreamed of spirals and strange lights, waking to find skin marked by faint, chalky patterns. Local children came as close as their parents allowed, leaving offerings, corn, feathers, coins, near the clearing. Some believed the lamp could cure sickness or reveal hidden truths. For a week, the investigation continued. Specimens removed from the room decayed rapidly or withered into ash within hours. Hanley suspected the lamp protected the mountain's memory, and that trying to move it would be catastrophic. On the 7th day, the team discovered a series of inscriptions deep in the stone wall, written in a mix of Latin, ancient Osage, and cryptic mathematics. Hanley translated, "Keep the boundary honor. The spiral adaptation is never escape. Memory is the flame, do not forget the price." Frustration and revelation intermingled. The town's doctor, skeptical until now, reported a phantom chill running up his spine every time he touched the lamp's base. Broyles encountered hallucinations, a tall figure made of blue flame, standing silent by the door. On the final night, Hanley resolved to stay until midnight, seeking closure. As the hour approached, the spirals on the walls began to pulse, resolving into moving shapes, faces, hands, eyes, like a living tapestry. The lamp's flame grew brilliant white, filling the room with radiant heat and a low, musical hum. Hanley, trembling but determined, spoke. "Tell me your message." The flame flickered, casting Blackwood's shadow on the wall. In a burst, every spiral on every surface glowed for one long second, then faded. Hanley recorded, "Midnight, August 14th. The lamp responded. Saw visions, men and women lost. Spirals growing through their hands and eyes. Heard faint music. Thought I recognized a lullaby. Felt presence. Calm, not hostile. Left offerings. Memory. Voice. Stone. Flame cooled. Colors faded. All is quiet again." The next morning, the hidden room had changed. The lamp remained, but the spirals faded, replaced by a single phrase carved deep into the stone. The boundary was honored. The memory endures. Hanley and her team left the room, resealed the trapdoor, and posted warnings on the cabin's porch. Do not disturb the lamp. Remember those who vanished. Respect the spiral. Word spread quickly. Historians, scientists, and folklore seekers came to the cabin, always leaving as shadows stretched. Margaret Hanley became a local legend, living testament to the power and danger of memory. The lamp endured, perhaps adapting once again, no longer a lure, but a guardian for the past. In town, stories shifted from fear to respect. The cabin was not destroyed, but protected as a place for offerings, for memory, for boundaries. Survivors of the team spoke with reverence, their dreams forever marked by blue flame and spirals. Thus the impossible lamp remained, and the mountain's secret lived in every retelling, adaptation, memory, and the price of knowing, etched not only in stone, but in community hearts. Even as Hanley's team seemed to have solved the mystery, unease lingered. The lamp itself radiated not only light, but an inexplicable sense of memory, as if everyone who entered the hidden room left something of themselves behind. Over the following weeks, the investigators grew more entangled in the cabin's legacy. Stephen Broyles, restless since witnessing the transforming spirals, started having vivid dreams. He saw Blackwood wandering a spectral valley, a blue flame in his hand, pursued by shadows that took the shape of ancient animals. Sometimes the lamp in Broyles's waking world would flicker whenever he retold those dreams, as if recognizing itself in the story. The doctor developed recurring headaches and lost time. He noted in his medical journal that, despite perfect health, he would awaken from trances with charcoal spiral sketches on his palms, or the taste of cedar ash on his tongue. Hanley, outwardly calm, often felt a soothing hand through her hair when she sat alone with the lamp. On one occasion, the blue flame whirled upward as she whispered her mother's name, revealing for a moment a face she'd long forgotten. No stranger to hardship, Hanley steered the team carefully. She insisted no personal effects remain in the cabin overnight, and that no one entered alone. One day, a misstep by a surveyor led to panic. A dropped compass split in two, the team's only map lost to an unexpected wind. Next morning, the missing map was found tucked precisely on the pedestal next to the lamp, a single new spiral drawn in the center. As summer weather grew strange, late frosts and sun showers in the span of a single day, the investigators realized the lamp was not an artifact to be solved, but a boundary demanding respect and ritual. Hanley consulted the region's oldest residents, seeking legends that explain the origins of the spiral symbol. She learned of an Osage tale. An ancient ancestor had gifted the mountain a torch of memory, warning that if its blue flame turned white, the land would remember all that had been lost, for better or for worse. With each new revelation, tension mounted. The team observed villagers making midnight pilgrimages to the clearing, leaving bits of copper, dried flowers, and old photos, hoping for blessings or guidance in times of grief. Once Hanley discovered a child's wooden top spinning, untouched by hands, as she entered the hidden chamber. The blue lamp seemed to leap in recognition. Broyles suggested testing the lamp's effect on local minerals, placing small samples of quartz and pine resin near its base. Were the spirals simply psychic suggestion, or did they form in the land itself? They found to their astonishment that overnight, the resin had fused to quartz, forming a translucent spiral coil, impossible to replicate in any laboratory. Journalists and curiosity seekers arrived, but most left quickly, unnerved by the cabin's unnaturally calm air and the shifting dust of memory. One reporter from Denver, after a single night, swore never to write about the cabin, leaving behind only a half-finished draft with the words, "The mountain sees you." Even friendships strained under the lamp's watch. Some investigators became irritable, quarrels breaking out over minor issues. Old grievances surfaced, then faded with apologies the next day, as if the cabin itself demanded reconciliation. Only Hanley sustained peace. Her belief that memory keeps its own counsel steadied the uneasy hearts of all around her. The investigation lasted until the first autumn frost. By then, every member of Hanley's team bore some mark of the lamp, a changed dream, an unexplained scrap of old memory, a newfound urgency to honor boundaries and the land itself. Most striking was the slow, inevitable sense that the lamp's secret was not in how it glowed, but in how it listened. The flame responded to sorrow and hope alike. It reflected the spirals of loss, adaptation, and belonging in anyone who stepped through the trapdoor. Before sealing the room for a final time, Hanley gathered the team and, in a rite borrowed from elders, sang an old melody, its verses carried by wind and blue light. Each investigator left a keepsake, a name, a memory, a wish for peace. As the trapdoor closed, the hidden room pulsed once more with soft blue light, a sigh of memory settling over the cabin. Hanley posted one last inscription on the porch for travelers, bold or foolish enough to seek the lamp. Enter with memory, leave with understanding, disturb neither. The closing of the trapdoor did not mean the end of the lamp's power. Its memory, like a deep current under ice, continued to ripple through the community and the land. Hanley, though she rarely spoke of the cabin in public, found herself a confidant for people wrestling with forgotten burdens, grieving families, those who felt lost, old miners with secrets from another century. Hanley's legend grew far beyond the mountain. Letters arrived from researchers in Europe, Asia, and the East Coast, some seeking explanation, others offering their own tales of boundary objects, haunted chambers, and the inexplicable link between memory, ritual, and place. Once, a delegation of indigenous elders visited quietly, drawn by word of the spiral's reappearance. They shared histories of boundary lights and guardians, ancient lamps said to hold the spirit memory of a place. One elder spent hours in the clearing, and upon return, quietly told Hanley, "Your lamp remembers for the mountain, so the mountain needs not to grieve alone." Strange phenomena continued. Some nights, blue light flickered faintly through the cracks in the cabin's foundation, only to disappear if watched directly. People who left gifts, whispered confessions, carved animals, braids of hair, reported new dreams, or resolution to old pain. Children grew up tracing spirals in the dust without knowing why, the symbol embedded in their games. As the years passed, the town's relationship with the cabin transformed. What was once terror and avoidance became respect and ritual. The spiral symbol was painted above doorways and carved into walking sticks. The summer festival included a silent candlelit walk around the clearing, each participant reciting a secret wish or regret to the wind, trusting the lamp to hold what they could not. Yet, with reverence came fresh danger. In the late 1920s, news of artifact hunters seeking the miracle lamp of the Rockies brought strangers with crowbars and greed. Hanley organized townsfolk to guard the site, appealing to state authorities for protection. The soil of the mountain, however, seemed to know when intention was foul. Would-be thieves turned back, sickened, bewildered, or unable to locate the trapdoor. Broyles, now older and more philosophical, returned every year to tidy the cabin, read his dreams aloud, and leave cryptic messages under loose floorboards for future seekers. The spiral is not a secret code, it's a living thread. Any scientist or storyteller who came too proud or dismissive left with a series of minor mishaps: failed camera exposures, lost boots, unexplainable vertigo. The lamp's fame reached its height during the Depression. In the hardest winters, Hanley and the elders opened the cabin as a sanctuary, a place to sit in candlelight and share food or grief. The hidden room remained closed, but the spiral watched over gatherings, a gentle reminder that boundaries held meaning, not malice. Through all generations, local memory kept the lesson. The impossible lamp was not designed to grant wishes or reveal every answer, but to absorb loss and safeguard the balance between remembering and letting go. Years later, when Hanley was old and Broyles had died, a new team of scholars asked if the lamp could one day be used to solve humanity's genetic riddle or unlock eternal memory for the world. Hanley only smiled. Not every gift is meant to be solved. Some are meant to hold the weight we cannot. Chapter 3 closes with a single blue spiral drawn in chalk at the hidden room's threshold. As another autumn wind scatters the scent of cedar and dust across the land, and the lamp glows quietly below, a mystery, a memory, and a mercy, forever evolving with the people who choose to honor it. Chapter 4. Adaptation or Madness. The Trap of Complete Isolation. As the years slipped onward and the lamp's legend spread, the old mountain isolation thickened around the Blackwood cabin. Yet, if earlier generations had stared at the spiral in fear, a new kind of fascination gripped the curious and the desperate alike, one that led a succession of souls to confront the profound, often deadly, psychological consequences of solitude. With each decade, people drawn to the boundary tested it not just with rituals or science, but with their very minds. In the depth of winter 1932, the cycle reset. A lone wanderer named Samuel Decker, displaced by the Depression and stories of transformative luck, arrived in the valley. Braiding together folklore and the promise of a quick fortune, he believed the lamp held an answer to his ruined past. His journal, later found stuffed in the cavity beside the trapdoor, recorded the march from curiosity to obsession. January 9th. Heard the flame was blue, the spiral never-ending, snow thigh-deep, it muffles sound, but the lamp glows through the window at night. We'll shelter in the cabin. If I leave richer than I came, I'll thank the mountain. If not, let it bury me. Days blurred within the cabin's dark walls. Decker at first tried to maintain a regular routine, collecting firewood, sketching the spiral, talking into the silence. But the isolation, so much deeper than just loneliness, began to bend days into a pattern of waking, wandering, and trembling at midnight as the flame danced to a music only he could hear. January 14th. Time skips. I forget what meat tastes like. Chalk spirals on my sleeves, on the table leg, inside my eyelids. Tried to turn the lamp upside down. It slid back straight, flame unchanged. Decker's writing became fragmented. Hunger and chill clawed at him, but his greatest fear was losing his mind to something in the blue light. He drew dozens of faces and forms, sometimes his own, sometimes strangers, sometimes things unseen. He hallucinated footsteps above the trapdoor and laughter from within the spiral patterns. Yet, on a day when he most despaired, he claimed the lamp grew warm, easing his pain, showing him the figure of a woman in the glass, his mother or someone who remembered what it meant to be innocent. reports of Decker's isolation alarmed nearby villagers. Some believed the lamp was testing those who sat with it alone, peeling back their memories, demanding truths that could not be faked. A few believed the spiral was growing again, curves tightening on all surfaces, winding around Decker's mind. January 23rd. Dreamt the spiral opened. A doorway, not a trap. I stepped through and saw Blackwood, silent, covered in dust, drawing in circles. He greeted me. "You don't have to be alone. The mountain never forgets, but you don't have to remember everything." When a spring search party finally broke open the cabin, Decker was gone. His coat folded beside the lamp, boots still warm. The only trace, a perfectly drawn spiral in charcoal, starting where his heart would have pressed against the floor. Decker's fate became the new core of the lamp's evolving myth. Some who read his journal claimed he had dissolved into mountain memory, that he now haunted the blue lamp's edge, guiding or warning those who came next. From that point, the cabin attracted not only the lost, but the deliberate, psychologists, spiritualists, and seekers escaping the modern world. Each set up experiments, rituals, or spent a night alone, hoping to witness the line where adaptation becomes madness, or unravel the lamp's protection from despair. A young psychologist, Dr. Elsie Graves, famously lost herself to the experiment. She survived a week in the cabin with little food, emerging altered, emotionally fragile but suddenly able to recall, with clarity, the faces, voices, and details from her earliest years. She published a sensational report. The lamp mediates boundary and self. Beyond a point, the psyche starts to adapt in ways that mimic genius or surrender to the shadow. The spiral is not merely a record, but a test. Within its curves, you meet what you cannot outrun. The mountain became a place of pilgrimage for boundary seekers, even as old-timers warned, adaptation might save you, it might lose you forever. Some left changed, less fearful, more cautious, speaking in parables about light and memory. Others suffered breakdowns or vanished entirely, their stories feeding the growing spiral of legend. As decades passed, authorities worked to limit access. By the 1950s, the cabin was declared hazardous. Signs warned against trespassing after dark. But still, on full moon nights, figures crossed the boundary, sometimes seen, sometimes never seen again. Meanwhile, Hanley's descendants, entrusted as stewards of the spiral, continued local rituals. They marked the seasons with offerings and song, taught children never to tamper with the lamp or spend more than a single dusk inside. Families whispered the old warnings, isolate too long, and the spiral will learn your true name. In moments of community grief, the loss of a loved one, a bad harvest, or fear of the unknown, the lamp glimmered with renewed importance. People believed it could help adapt to sorrow, absorb the sharpest pain, or grant mercy by showing the past as a gentle echo rather than a fresh wound. Outsiders remained skeptical. Some tried to prove the lamp's energy with modern instruments, always getting inconclusive or self-contradictory results. Others, drawn by radio broadcasts or documentary rumors, came hoping for miracle cures or secret knowledge, sometimes begging to be left alone with the lamp to acquire genius. They were warned, but not all listened. Adaptation, the spiral's lesson taught, comes at a price. Memory that bends to survive may also unspool. Identity that adapts too far may forever circle the lamp, unable to return home. With each passing year, new footprints pressed into snow and dust by the cabin, echoes of old stories mingling with modern confusion. Not every experiment brought disaster. Some cartographers, naturalists, and poets claimed small miracles. Clearer vision, the dissipation of grief, or the invention of strange new melodies after time with the lamp. Yet always they returned, telling the same warning. It changes you. The spiral gained fresh layers of meaning. Spiritualists theorized that stepping through the spiral in thought or meditation could grant glimpses into other lives, or trigger adaptive breakdown, a loss of self so profound the mountain would absorb what remained. Some skeptics found their cynicism twisted. One government man, sent to investigate radiation, left muttering that the mountain keeps its own secrets and always will. As the Cold War dawned, authorities attempted to close off the valley. Fences went up, then vanished in landslides. Warning sirens crackled and burned out during thunder. The lamp, now rarely seen by outsiders, pulsed blue only under perfect darkness, recalling those lost to history, but never entirely gone from memory. The story of a young woman named June Carter brought new fire to the legend. June, a war widow, came searching for relief after her husband's death. She spent 3 nights inside the cabin, writes in her own journal. Everything felt heavy at first. The lamp whispered, almost sang, in the wind. On the last night I saw Henry's smile in the flame, felt forgiveness for myself. When I returned home, the world was gentler. Even my old grief felt like rain after a dry spell. June's story circulated through mountain communities, drawing new waves of travelers. Some came alone, others with guides, a few researchers hoping to record the boundary effect. Local children adopted new spiral games, tracing shapes in frost and leaves, reciting rhymes about lamps and memory. But for the handful who lingered too long, madness never lurked far. One poet, after a week's solitude, spoke only in riddles, his language twisted into spirals, his art feverish and brilliant, but unreadable. He vanished, his notebook found years later near the trapdoor, pages fused into a single mass, ink bleeding into perfect curves. By the 1960s, adaptation became both a cultural aspiration and a cautionary curse. Newspapers published editorials on mountain resilience, local folklore blended with psychology and university studies. Yet the warnings grew sharper. Hanley's descendants formed the Spiral Keepers, a council to mark lunar cycles, watch for trouble, and guide those longing to test the lamp's power. Mid-century, more attempts at scientific study failed. Computers positioned in the clearing glitched or recorded nonsense. Audio tapes, meant to capture the lamp's hum, played back only silence or the faintest sound of a child's laughter. Doctors warned of spiral fever, a state of dreamy introspection and anxiety present only in those who touched the lamp's base. The spiral itself became a sign of hope on mountain quilt squares, yet also a mark of tragedy in graveyards, carved for those lost inside and returned changed, their old world gone. Those who adapted well found solace. Those who didn't left warnings in poem fragments, songs gone minor, or vanished without trace. As the modern world pressed in, local memory held firm. The lamp is mercy and trial. You must choose what truth to learn and what pain to release. By the turn of the millennium, the Blackwood Cabin was styled as both place of pilgrimage and peril, featured in documentaries, tourist guides, and the private journals of modern-day spiritualists. Yet, despite the path packed harder each year, the boundaries remained fiercely guarded by the descendants of the Spiral Keepers. Local memory was now a mosaic of mystery and mercy. The lamp's spiral glowed faintly beneath storms, and the valley's oldest families marked every summer and winter solstice with gatherings. They retold legends, sang lullabies adapted from Hanley's era, and shared bread with newcomers who sometimes arrived shaking, seeking a way to leave sorrow or confusion behind. Rituals had evolved. Those who sought to confront pain or adapt to loss brought gifts as tokens. A piece of written regret, a childhood item, a broken glass shaped into a spiral, and left them beneath the porch at sunset. The spiral keepers would recite, "May you learn to adapt without forgetting who you were." Sometimes those who risked isolation returned, transformed, their eyes haunted but wiser, or never returned, their absence a new thread woven into the valley's memories. Social workers, scientists, and curious travelers came to study the psychological effects of lamp exposure. They cataloged cases of spiral resilience and memory break, noting how some found peace with past traumas, while others experienced unending dreams, subtle paranoia, and overwhelming need for ritual. Local legends grew alongside these academic reports, adding new warnings. To adapt is to change, but the spiral asks what you must lose to survive. Among the seekers was a young woman named Lydia, an artist escaping the weight of modern fame. After spending 12 days immersed in the lamp's presence, her journals wild with sketches and prose, she experienced visions of her lost twin, a flood of old pain followed by deep, creative energy. Lydia returned to the city with new masterpieces, claiming, "The spiral taught me how to endure grief without breaking. It gave me the power to remember, and the bravery to let go." On rare occasions, elders described mysterious lamp nights, when the spiral's blue glow could be seen on far cliffs, said to guide lost hikers home or to mark a tragedy forgiven. Some nights ended in song, others in solemn silence, a testament to the lamp's ever-changing mercy and peril. Years later, the cabin itself began to show signs of its own adaptation. Pine needles, layered thick on the roof, formed natural spiral patterns. Wildflowers circled the porch in improbable rings, and the earth around the trapdoor never froze even in the coldest winters. The lamp remained unchanged within its stone chamber, flame burning quietly, sometimes flaring white as storm clouds rolled in, or in the instant a secret regret was whispered nearby. For all its history, the lesson endured. Isolation in pursuit of adaptation brings both transformation and risk. Whether genius or despair, vision or madness, what the spiral gives must be honored and lived. Chapter 4 closes with Lydia, Hanley's youngest grandchild, leaving her final offering at the cabin and singing into the dusk, a music of hope, courage, and caution that the mountain, the lamp, and every seeker would remember for generations to come. Chapter 5. What remains? Government secrecy, local legends, and the unanswered fate. As the new millennium set in, the legend of Blackwood Cabin and its spiral lamp had outlasted generations, wars, scientific revolutions, and cultural shifts. Interest from far beyond the Rockies intensified. Historians, cryptologists, folklorists, and government officials each arrived with their own questions, convictions, and sometimes hidden agendas. The line between investigation and intrusion grew ever thinner, and the core truth of the mountain, what it remembered and what it refused to reveal, became the greatest riddle of all. The valley's routine was disrupted when a team from a federal research agency showed up in armored trucks, citing public safety and national interest. Spiral keepers protested, journalists were arrested, Local children cried as fences went up again, and men with dosimeters and lead aprons entered the clearing. Behind closed doors, the government convened panels about resonance anomalies, psychological influence zones, and unclassified adaptive phenomena. Weeks passed. Every instrument failed. Every radio transmission was scrambled. Every image was blurred. Reports indicated nothing save unusual electromagnetic turbulence, psychological distress, and persistent spiral motifs in all retrieved samples. A young agent, Samantha Wild, kept notebooks far more honest than the official documents. Her entries became the secret core of what would later leak into the outside world. June 17th, boundary lines do not hold. Team Alpha refuses to sleep. One man cried before dawn, said the lamp showed him the face of his dead sister, recovered more spiral stones, all disintegrated after leaving boundary. I've dreamed every night of a child walking through frost without leaving footprints. Local resistance grew. At town hall meetings, elders spoke not only of memory and history, but of real danger. The lamp reacts to the mountain, not to machines. You cannot study loss, only endure it. Meanwhile, outsiders reported seeing blue light from highway bends, and rumors swept through regional hospitals of spiral fever, nightmares, compulsive drawing, gentle delirium that always ended in calm acceptance or urgent yearning to return. Some researchers took risks. One team broke the trapdoor, attempting to remove the lamp for laboratory analysis. They succeeded only briefly. The lamp's flame went out, the chamber filled with cold so intense their breath froze on their skin. The oldest spiral keeper, Hannah, entered and sang a song from Hanley's time, voice cracking as she spoke, regrets for each lost soul. The flame relit, blue and white, washing the chamber with radiant heat that healed the frostbite. After that, federal teams retreated behind red tape, leaving notes to preserve boundary integrity. For months, as the fences rusted and grass retook the trail, ordinary life resumed. Yet the lamp now flickered with new intelligence. People began reporting coordinated dreams, a circle of faces, hands joined over a blue spiral, voices reciting, "What remains is memory. What memory remains is mercy." Historians traced the cabin's legend through hundreds of sources: old journals, government leaks, family stories, coded broadcasts in amateur radio. The lamp's spiral appeared in graffiti, secret societies, encrypted emails, even a famous mural in New York painted by Lydia, Hanley's descendant. The symbol became both a warning and a promise. Boundaries, if honored, become sources of healing rather than of harm. Meanwhile, psychotherapists arrived to document adaptive phenomena, cases ranging from sudden remission of grief to new creative sparks, or rarely, rapid psychological decline. Some speculated the lamp might one day inspire medicine for trauma. Others said it would remain an unexplainable mystery until long after the final keeper passed away. But Blackwood's fate, along with Decker, June Carter, Lydia, and countless others, remained unresolved, forever woven into the spiral's force. Some claimed to see Blackwood's ghost in blue flickers after foggy rain. Others believed Decker and June had crossed the lamp, now helping lost travelers out of the danger zone, whispering comfort in wind and wood. At the autumn festival, spiral keepers gathered once more at the cabin. The lamp sputtered, flared, and cooled. Hundreds joined in ritual, holding old photos, singing both old and new laments. Hannah's final message: "We are all keepers now. May mercy guide us where answers cannot." In that moment, misinformation and secrecy shattered. News crews filmed the lamp's spiral glowing for miles, its blue light passing unnoticed in official broadcasts, but remembered by every watcher, every survivor, and every artist searching for meaning in the mountain. The valley accepted its fate, its legend forever unanswerable, its mercy eternal. Blackwood Cabin endured, boundaries shifting in dust, flame, and memory. The spiral lamp ultimately protected not only secrets, but the humanity of those who searched for truth. And so, to this day, the cabin waits, the lamp burns, and every seeker who arrives, whether for answers, healing, or remembrance, leaves a part of themselves beneath the spiral's silent, merciful light. As federal interest faded but never died, a new chapter arose for the cabin: academic myth-making. Universities sent teams hoping to supplant folklore with data. Professors published psychological profiles on the valley spiral effect, debating if those exposed to the lamp experienced a collective form of adaptive memory or simply heightened suggestibility in a charged environment. One study, led by Dr. Elias Bernard, attempted to measure spontaneous empathy patterns among spiral keepers. Tests showed unusual results. Participants reported experiencing faint, shared memories of childhood loss, brief creative inspiration, and uncanny moments of déjà vu while near the lamp. The scientific papers, unable to replicate these phenomena elsewhere, concluded further investigation is recommended, but the site resists controlled study. Meanwhile, artistic legend bloomed. Lydia's mural in New York became a pilgrimage site for urban dreamers, while poets inspired by June Carter's writings launched a genre of spiral verse, intimate, cyclical, haunted by memory and aspiration. Elderly spiral keepers wrote memoirs detailing both dread and comfort found in adaptation. Local storykeepers organized spiral nights, where hundreds gathered with lanterns, singing and sharing stories on the cabin's porch. Some whispered of seeing Blackwood's silhouette beyond the tree line, a flicker of blue light trailing through mist. Others claimed to have been guided home by a vision of Decker, his boots crunching frozen pine needles, beckoning lost hikers from desperation. The fate of the lamp itself was endlessly debated. Some thought its flame weakened as more outsiders intruded. Others believed it grew stronger each time a wish was spoken softly and honestly. Most agreed the spiral evolved with its stewards. The lamp seemed to know the difference between true grief and false curiosity, and would only flare in the presence of the genuine. As word spread globally, cryptologists published pamphlets analyzing spiral patterns, hoping to decode a master message, a universal secret in the geometry itself. None succeeded, but many went home changed, tracing spirals on bus windows, church pews, scientific chalkboards, as signs of humility before mystery. Through all of it, the fundamental question persisted. What remains after adaptation, after learning, after letting go? Was the lamp a divine object, or a naturally occurring mercy, crafted by human need for remembrance and healing? Each autumn, the spiral keepers crafted new rituals. Children offered memory stones to the lamp, elders recited the story of Blackwood, and a single blue spiral was drawn in the dirt as a symbol that what adapts never disappears. It only changes form. The cabin's enduring presence was preserved in fiction, academic argument, and even government legend as a site not to be solved, but honored, a crossroads of fear and mercy, memory and evolution. With every generation, the lamp waited, flames shifting according to sorrow, hope, and the ever-tightening spiral of those who sought its light. As the millennium turned and the world's pace grew ever faster, the legend of Blackwood Cabin matured. Spiral keepers became mentors, passing down wisdom through generations. The lamp waits for true memory and gentle courage. The role of ritual deepened. Families would gather every equinox to honor those lost, and those who returned changed, the spiral traced in bread dough, ashes, and river stones. Sometimes, restoration workers came to preserve the cabin, careful never to disturb the hidden room or the lamp. A few, staying overnight when storms cut off the valley, told stories of hearing lullabies in the wind, seeing faces in blue mist, and finding solace where they had expected only fear. New generations brought new interpretations. For some, the spiral meant creative birth. Artists left their work for blessing, and those who suffered left confessions, hopes, small talismans of survival. For scientists, the cabin became a symbol of the limits of knowledge, a reminder that some phenomena were best witnessed in wonder, not mastered or explained. In the last decade, boundary beliefs mingled with environmental activism. Locals began to view the cabin and its lamp as guardians, not just of memory, but of ecological balance. Restoration teams planted spiral-shaped gardens, using native flowers and stones from creek beds, honoring adaptation not as human triumph or madness, but as the law of nature's gentlest parts. The lamp itself remained unchanged, burning blue by dusk, sometimes flickering white during births or deaths in the valley. The spiral keepers spoke of the flame as remembrance incarnate, guarding the stories that made life possible in the harshest places. One final event underscored the lamp's enduring power. A young child, missing in the woods for days, was found sleeping safely at the foot of the cabin, blue spiral drawn carefully in pine needles beside him. He explained to rescuers, "The lady in the flame told me how not to be afraid." The valley held a festival of gratitude, every family crafting spirals in honor of the lamp and the mercy beneath its light. Blackwood's fate, like Decker's, June's, Lydia's, never found closure in evidence or fact. Instead, the valley accepted the spiral as its truth, a mystery circular, growing with each seeker, never solved, always remembered. At the century's final spiral night, Hannah, the last of the original keepers, spoke to a lantern-lit crowd. "We come here carrying loss, hope, and the need to change. The lamp's spiral has taught us, mercy is memory, and memory is a living thing. To adapt is not to forget, but to love what remains and to carry it forward." The crowd joined hands around the cabin, chant echoing in the cold, blue light, "May mercy burn, may memory guide. What adapts can heal, what remains can shine." As stars turned in the sky and the flame glowed on, generations of secrets, kindness, heartbreak, and courage wound together in infinite, gentle spirals. The legacy of Blackwood Cabin, forever unbroken, forever evolving. In the hearts of all who came to honor wonder